It's been a few days since Anthony Smith came out with his latest excuses for losing to Dominic Reyes, which is nothing new, just more delusion that we've heard from him countless times. But I'm going to do a video on it anyway because I actually think there might be a chance he will retire after this. But we'll get to that at the end. First of all, if you haven't read it, Dominic Reyes apparently was not that good. Anthony Smith saw everything coming, and the only reason he got hit at all is because he wanted to put a stop to the lull in the action, and he wanted to make something happen, and that's why he got caught. And in case you need to hear it to believe it, I'm going to play this clip where he actually says these things, and Dean Thomas, who knows fighters, who spent his whole life covering the sport, who knows the mentality of fighters, just feeds into Anthony Smith's delusion.
Doing really well.
And I got impatient. Like, I just wanted something to happen.
Yeah.
And I just forced it, you know?
Yeah.
I
felt that too. Like, you were doing so well and then just got impatient.
Yeah, I just got impatient. Like, nothing was happening. Like, he wasn't engaging. He wasn't, like, I don't know. Like, I seen everything.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the worst part, too. I, like, was in there and I'm like, God damn, you're not that good.
Yeah, that's what, honestly, I felt like you were the better guy.
And
I was like, this is...
Okay, first of all, I gotta ask, what the hell is Dean Thomas thinking? Again, he knows fighters. He knows the fight game. He knows when fighters are going from being delusional to where they're confident, you know, they're having that healthy bit of delusion, to being completely out of space. And Smith is very clearly on that side, and yet Dean Thomas is just feeding it to him. I mean, just, what is with you, Dean? Come on, you know fighting. But whatever. Anthony Smith, I actually think that this is the one time, and again, maybe I'm wrong, but maybe he doesn't actually believe the delusions that are coming out of his mouth, because when he's talking about how sensitive Alex Pereira is and inventing this narrative that he could beat Pereira, in a grappling contest, and that Pereira is being overly sensitive when he says this, and saying that John Jones isn't that good and John Jones is beatable and the only reason he lost is because somehow by the grace of whoever, he just didn't show up on the night, and Magomed Ankalaev isn't that good and he didn't do a damn thing wrong. He's speaking with conviction, like he actually believes these crazy things that he's saying. But here, with the thumb up the nose like a little kid and his hands covering his face and wiping his eyes here, he looks, in my opinion, like a guy who's a bit broken, who almost doesn't believe the delusions he's saying, who almost knows that what he's saying is just a coping mechanism. But again, maybe I'm looking too much into it. Maybe Smith does believe these delusions. But later on, I'm not going to play this whole clip, but you guys can go and listen to it. He does say that because Dominic Reyes isn't that good and he lost to the guy, then maybe he's not very good and therefore maybe he should retire. Now, Anthony Smith should have been telling himself this for the last 5 years, since he lost to John Jones, and that's when he started this narrative that anybody who beats him isn't actually that good, and the only reason he loses at all is because he's not ready on the night, and, you know, something happens, and anybody who beats him, again, is just lucky, etc., etc. He should have been telling himself this all this time, that if he's losing to guys who aren't that good, then actually he's not good. But again, the fact that he's actually coming around to this now, it might actually mean that he's ready to call it a day. And going into the fight, his energy, it wasn't just delusional Anthony Smith energy, which again we've been used to for the last more than half a decade. It was a bit off even for him. Like, the fact that he got angry at Rampage Jackson for listening to TJ Dillashaw saying, look, Anthony Smith doesn't have what it takes to be champion. The only reason he's carrying on is to live in a fantasy, and he's actually not as courageous as he claims because he covers up and he doesn't tap to strikes, but he just covers up and waits for referees to stop fights and then says, oh, I was about to win that fight, etc., etc. TJ Dillashaw said that on the podcast. Rampage Jackson heard him say it, and he got angry at Rampage Jackson and ostracized him. Like, that is just so... It's sensitive and it's ridiculous and it's weak energy, even for Anthony Smith. Like, again, even by his standards, this is ridiculous. Going into the fight, he said, "I don't give a damn about winning," when usually we hear Anthony Smith speak his delusions before the fight. That again, he's better than Alex Pereira, that on a good day he can beat John Jones, that Magomed Ankalaev got lucky and his leg broken. If that didn't happen, somehow he was going to win, etc., etc. He says these kind of things going into the fights after his losses to the big ones. Maybe the fact that he lost to Roman Dolidze, again, it was the start of him thinking, you know what, maybe I don't have it for this fight game anymore. But it's very difficult for fighters who are delusional, who actually they're all delusional to an extent. All fighters have an element of delusion. For those who don't know, that's for more videos. But guys like Anthony Smith, Jamal Hill, Israel Adesanya, especially Conor McGregor, these guys have way too much. And Smith hasn't accomplished what those guys have, and he's arguably one of the most delusional of the whole lot. Going into the Roman Dolidze fight, which again was a blown up middleweight who wasn't even that good, he was coming out with his usual confident, delusional talk. That the light heavyweight division declined him, that they got exposed, that he's about to go out there and show everybody what he's truly about, and just, I can't even say the words without laughing, because after the fight, he went on Michael Bisping's show and came out with just, you guessed it, more excuses, saying that he didn't enjoy going through the training camp for the fight, that he wasn't motivated, etc., etc. And I paused the video at almost the perfect time, because you see Michael Bisping's look where he's thinking, oh God, not this again. He says very directly to Anthony Smith, look, you're about to go into a cage to fight another human being. You've got a family to feed. Of course it's not going to be fun. Training camps are not about fun. They're about getting ready for war. What more motivation do you need? If you're not motivated to take somebody else out, I don't want to know you. And that's me kind of twisting his words a little bit, but Bisping was very unimpressed, as you could tell by the look on his face, when Smith came out with these excuses. And again, the fact that Smith lost to an unheralded poor middleweight at light heavyweight, maybe that was the start of him coming to grips with the fact that he's just not built for fighting anymore. It's been about 6 years almost since he lost to John Jones, and that was where the crazy narrative started. Oh, John Jones isn't that good. If you take all of his attributes away, he's just normal, and I could beat him. The only reason I lost is because I didn't show up. He got dominated by Glover Teixeira. Alexander Rakic, he just looked flat. Then he loses to Magomed Ankalaev after all this talk of how he was going to upset the odds, and the odds makers didn't know what they were talking about, and he was going to shock the world, etc., etc. He loses, blames it on his leg, and says that Ankalaev isn't that good. Then he loses to Johnny Walker in a fight where before the event he was saying that Johnny Walker was being disrespectful when, I mean, does anybody really believe Johnny Walker tries to disrespect his opponents? And he was being very stern with him. He gets dominated in the fight, has excuses afterwards, typical. I can't remember what his excuse was after the Khalil Roundtree fight, but to me, the excuses after the Roman Dolidze fight were arguably the worst. I mean, John Jones, of course, that's another story, because him thinking that he can beat John Jones is just crazy in itself, in ways I can't describe in one video. But it was, again, in my opinion, the Roman Dolidze fight where he may have started to finally understand deep down he's not ready to continue. And he can't, and if he does, he's just going to be chasing a dream that is unattainable for him. But if he's going to continue with these excuses, like what he's coming out with now after the Dominic Reyes fight, maybe he won't retire, because plenty of fighters continue fighting when they have absolutely nothing left, but it's all they know what to do, so they can't say no to another fight. It's just who they are. And Smith is kind of in a situation here where he may, again, deep down want to call it quits, but there's just something that is saying, no, we can't do that. We can't call it quits. Let's just make more excuses and hope somebody out there will buy it, and then I'll get another fight. I mean, you guys let me know what you think down below. Again, it's kind of irrelevant. I don't really care if Anthony Smith fights again at all, but I just thought of making a video about this. Plenty more coming soon. Like the video and subscribe to the channel for more, as always.